Hello and welcome to Kentucky Today, the podcast. I'm Lawrence Smith, the editor of Kentucky Today, and joining us as usual is Mark Maynard, our managing editor, and Chip Hutchison, the content editor for Kentucky Today, and joining us today, our life issues reporter, Tessa Redmond, fresh from maternity leave. Tessa, it's good to see you. Welcome back.
Thank you. It's good to be with you guys today.
First, tell us how your new 3-person family is doing.
We're doing so well. Our daughter is going to be 3 months next week, actually. I can't believe the time has gone by so fast. She is such a joy, and we are just soaking it up. We're so thankful for her.
Well, we are too, and thankful that you are back with us again, and grateful for that your family is growing and doing well. You really jumped right back into it quickly. Earlier this week, you went to a bill signing, House Bill 90, which started as a bill that would sanction freestanding birthing centers, but became much more than that. First, talk about what birthing centers are that this bill kind of legalizes and makes possible.
Yes, so freestanding birthing centers, they're kind of the middle ground for women who want to give birth. So you have a choice of a home birth or you can give birth in a hospital. And a freestanding birthing center brings those two environments together. So it's designed to be more of a home-like setting while still providing support services following like a midwife model. So you can have a midwife there, a doula present, but also their freestanding birthing centers have a contract with emergency medical transportation so that if there's an issue, they can get you to a hospital quickly. So it's kind of that nice middle ground, and it provides another option for Kentucky moms.
So that bill makes such birthing centers possible, sanctions them in Kentucky, but at the last minute, a lot more was added to that bill. Talk about what else that bill does now that generated some controversy. In fact, Governor Beshear vetoed it, but the legislature overrode it.
Yes, that is correct. So there were two additional measures that were added toward the end of the session. The first of those was a perinatal palliative care measure. So this was originally House Bill 414. And what it does is it expands access to care for families who are facing complex pregnancies and difficult prenatal diagnoses. So it requires hospitals or freestanding birthing centers, places that offer obstetric care services. It requires them to refer patients to support services, things like counseling, educations about a prenatal diagnosis, preparing a plan of care for that infant, providing assistance with medical decisions, or creating keepsakes, coordinating care, and specialized support from the beginning of a pregnancy until that child's death. And it also requires the Cabinet for Health and Family Services to create a list of perinatal palliative care programs and services on its website so that Kentuckians have access to that component that was added to House Bill 90. The second is providing legal and clinical clarity for maternity health interventions. So last summer, state legislators were approached by physicians who were concerned about the unintended consequences of Kentucky's abortion law. They said that those laws were generating some fear among providers where the standard medical care for complicated pregnancies and treatment of medical emergencies related to pregnancies, it rubbed up against the language of Kentucky's pro-life laws. So House Bill 90, it seeks to address some of those concerns by defining what is an abortion and what is not an abortion according to Kentucky law. So an abortion, which pro-life individuals would define as an elective, unnecessary abortion that ends the life of an unborn child. In state law right now, according to House Bill 90, it now means the performance of any act with the intent to terminate the clinically diagnosable pregnancy of a woman known to be pregnant with knowledge that the termination by those means will cause the death of the unborn child. Now, what is not an abortion under the new law is this: actions that require separating the pregnant woman from her unborn child when performed by a licensed physician. So falling under this new definition of what is not an abortion, those are things such as miscarriage management, treating a molar or an ectopic pregnancy, treating sepsis or hemorrhage, and any other life-saving measures for pregnant women.
Now, pro-life leaders like Kentucky Right to Life were really championing this bill. They're behind it. Why so?
Well, I'd like to provide a point of context before I answer this question. Language is important and definitions matter because those definitions shape how we act. And when we say the word abortion, different people have different interpretations. So, medically speaking, a miscarriage is a spontaneous abortion. But when pro-life groups talk about abortion, they aren't referring to a D&C procedure that removes the remains of a dead unborn child from their mother's womb. They're not talking about women receiving treatment for sepsis or hemorrhage and other life-threatening emergencies. They're not talking about the prescription even of an abortion-inducing drug that assists a woman's body in completing a naturally occurring miscarriage. Or even the removal of an ectopic pregnancy before that implanted embryo ruptures a woman's fallopian tube and kills both the woman and the child. Pro-life groups, they say abortion, and they mean the elective, non-necessary killing of a child in the womb. However, pro-abortion groups, they merge those two understandings. So there's the elective procedures to end pregnancies for any reason or no reason at all, and the medically necessary health care for women facing emergencies or complex pregnancy issues. So pro-life leaders like Kentucky Right to Life, they've articulated that the clarity provisions, they're going to save Kentucky lives because it removes ambiguities that really raise some red flags and concerns for health providers after Kentucky's trigger abortion ban went into effect in 2022. So, for example, at yesterday's bill signing ceremony, Representative Nancy Tate, and she is the co-chair for the Pro-Life Caucus in Frankfort, she said that she hopes that House Bill 90 is going to be used as a model across the nation that ensures that women can receive timely health care while prioritizing both the woman's life and the life of the child. Representative Kimberly Mosier, she's a co-sponsor of the bill. She said outright, it's going to save lives. And Adia Wishner with Kentucky Right to Life, she said previously that the bill is designed to enhance maternal health. And based upon what I was observing yesterday and things that I've seen just in my reporting, it seems to be leaders really believe that these linguistic distinctions around the definition of abortion, it's going to free physicians from fear so they can really do what they were always able to do under Kentucky law, which is to provide care, appropriate care for mothers while also prioritizing the lives of their children.
Let's talk about that because that's the larger issue, I think a nationwide issue of whether states that restrict abortions, such as Kentucky, are tying doctors' hands when it comes to treating pregnancy-related issues or complications. I know you're working on a story for the future, but what about reporting that's already being done about the seriousness or lack thereof of this claim?
What's really interesting about this claim is the perceived truthfulness of it really depends on who you ask. And I'll give you two perspectives. The American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, which is outspokenly pro-abortion, and it's a leading medical organization, they released a statement last year, and it said this: there is no doubt that abortion bans are preventing OBGYNs and other clinicians from providing health care to their patients, and that those patients and their families are suffering as a result. Doctors are being forced to practice under draconian laws designed to prevent care in the nuanced and complex situations that occur in real life. But on the flip side, the Association for Pro-Life Obstetricians and Gynecologists, they actually launched a campaign that same month, and they called it a Women's Healthcare Declaration. They actually said that life-affirming state laws, like what Kentucky has, they don't prevent healthcare professionals from providing necessary medical care for women. And there was actually a physician at the press release, the press conference for that initiative that said that just the previous week she had treated a tubal ectopic pregnancy. And she said that there were absolutely no concerns and no legal question about her ability to provide appropriate care for that pregnant woman's emergency. And it's just interesting because some are saying abortion bans lead to confusion and fear. Others say that confusion and fear is actually tied to political rhetoric around abortion, and that hospitals and state medical associations should provide guidance for physicians so that there isn't really any concern or fear. And I will say, World News Group did an excellent article about this very issue, which Lawrence, you shared with me. And they spoke with a number of doctors who disagreed with a ProPublica article, which created a huge splash last fall. It detailed the case of a woman in Georgia who died because her medical care was delayed after a miscarriage. And many doctors that World News Group spoke with actually didn't think that the laws are unclear, and they didn't have any concern. And those voices were not represented in that ProPublica article. A Florida physician actually said, I quote, "My colleagues are literate, and anybody who is literate can read the statute and clearly understand what the limitations and what the exceptions are." So it seems to be a mixed bag, to be honest. Some physicians do feel threatened, others don't. And the narrative that you read, it really depends on the political leanings of the news publication that you're reading.
I was going to make that point. In this issue, as often is with abortion and other hot button issues, your perspective depends on your worldview, how you view abortion. Before I let you go and ask you about something else, Planned Parenthood released its annual report for 23-24 earlier this week, and it's kind of engendered lots of reaction from pro-life forces. What did that report say, and why such a reaction to it?
Sure. So that annual report, it details medical services or any service provided by Planned Parenthood, their revenue and their expenses, just for any affiliate nationwide. And the biggest concern for pro-life advocates is the 402,230 abortions that were performed during that time frame, the fiscal year 2023 to 2024. And in that time frame, Planned Parenthood affiliates, they also provided over 900,000 pregnancy tests, over 7,000 prenatal services, and about 3,500 cases of prenatal care, plus like 13,000 preventative care visits. So that means that roughly there was one abortion for every 2.5 reproductive health services that were related to pregnancy. And Kentucky Right to Life, which is a pro-life advocacy group here in the state, they noted that there were approximately 57 abortions for every specific prenatal service. Now, the report doesn't detail whether those abortions were elective or medically necessary. What we do know is that Kentucky's Planned Parenthood affiliate in Kentucky, they don't perform abortions anymore under our state law. And understandably, pro-life leaders are very grieved by this. It's an increase of 10,000 abortions compared to last year. That's a 4.2% increase. And Planned Parenthood continues to be the largest provider of abortions in the U.S., even though, according to this annual report, pregnancy terminations, abortions, they only account for 4% of Planned Parenthood's services last year. So those who champion the sanctity of life, they're really grieved, they're bothered, and they also noted another things I saw other than just the shock at the scale of how many abortions were performed. That is a new record, that 402,000 figure. They were grieved that over 700 million of taxpayer dollars are continuing to fund Planned Parenthood and the work that they do. And National Right to Life on Twitter actually noted that Planned Parenthood's roughly $2 billion in revenue makes it one of the nation's most profitable nonprofits.
Interesting. It illustrates, it's going to fuel that issue of whether to defund Planned Parenthood. And it looks like as abortion services, quote unquote, rise at Planned Parenthood, other services are decreasing. So the abortion seems like it would be becoming a more and more important part of their business plan, so to speak. Tessa, so glad that you are back to help us interpret these things and give detail about what's going on to our readers, and really appreciate the work that you do. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Guys, that was interesting. We thought after the Roe v. Wade decision was overturned that there would be probably less emphasis on abortion, but that's not the case. In fact, there is more emphasis now on abortion, and now the primary means is chemical abortion. But this controversy will never go away until somehow, some way, we pray that abortion is made illegal nationwide, at least elective abortion is made illegal nationwide. All right, moving from that to another story that I covered. I went to Memphis yesterday, the past couple of days, with several of our KBC leaders, our Executive Director, Todd Gray, Michael Cabell, who's Assistant Executive Director for Convention Relations, and also our President, Brad Walker. And our another associate director, Jim Donnell, all went to Memphis for this CP 100 celebration, the 100th anniversary of the cooperative program. And several of the SBC leaders nationwide, in fact worldwide, all gathered there in Memphis, just a few hundred yards away from where the old Ellis Auditorium used to be, the place where the CP program was adopted by the convention in 1925 to sign a declaration that they are still committed a century later to the cooperative program as the best way to spread the gospel of Jesus Christ around the world. And it was very encouraging, I must say, to see that many people expressing support, people of all ages, all different sizes churches, leaders of the SBC entities, state convention leaders, and others, all saying, we still believe in this, and pledging to go forward with it. And we pray that it does indeed go forward, because it is, I think, the most effective and most efficient gospel spreading plan that's ever created. I know both of you agree with that.
Absolutely. It's been great to see these last couple of weeks with what we did at Kentucky and Murray, and then with this that so many others are getting excited about it, and not that they didn't already have the fever for it, but it is nice to see that all that celebration and the attention that has come to the cooperative program through all that, and we know what great things the cooperative program does.
That's right. Notably, the program itself there was Dr. Jeff Ward, who made a short speech, but most of it was taken up by, first of all, a season of prayer for all the areas that the cooperative program impacts. And also, one by one, each of those leaders came to sign that document reaffirming support for the cooperative program. So it was really neat to see, especially in Memphis, where the cooperative program began formally. Of course, we know it began in Kentucky unofficially, but again formally in Memphis, Tennessee in 1925. Mark, you saw examples of cooperation in action in northern Kentucky this week, a rally for an effort to reach folks in northern Kentucky for Christ, called the Hope for Northern Kentucky Crusade. That's going to be taking place in conjunction with our annual meeting in northern Kentucky later this year.
Yes, it was the last night actually, and it was the first rally that they've had. It was a kind of a prayer rally and a ask people to get involved rally actually, and the turnout was really good. It was approaching 300 people, and it was at First Baptist Cold Spring, which is where the convention will be in November. And Josh Schmidt, the pastor at Burlington Baptist, is the chairman of the group. And I know he was excited to see so many people signing their name, to work in this area or that area. And that's what it takes, and we had a lot of KBC involvement, a lot of people there who were kind of directing things last night. But I think the one thing that really attracted everybody a lot was the evangelist, who was going to be the evangelist in November, Daniel Ritchie. And he endeared himself, guys, to Kentucky when he opened with, look, I'm from North Carolina, but I hate Duke too. So I think everybody really appreciated that, and that kind of got him on their side. Of course, for those who don't know, Daniel Ritchie was born without arms, and you wouldn't know he's any different than anybody else. He's not woe is me. He's upbeat, positive, and just he was just a great person to listen to, and to see what he's doing. And this is his 25th year in ministry. He has two kids, 9 and 13 years old. They said they're running around everywhere. And, he does so many things with his feet, you just wouldn't believe it. I mean, to the point, I was talking to Jason Hay. He said they were eating together yesterday afternoon, and he would cut his steak with his feet. He holds the knife and fork with his feet. I mean, he just does what he's using what God has given him, and he's not complaining about it. He's just a joyous person. He's got a great sense of humor. I think people are going to really enjoy him. He's a good one, and I think having him there was really important to getting people excited. I think you needed to be able to hear this guy and see what he was about. And he shared all kinds of funny stories. One I'll just give real quick. He said this one guy was at an airport, and he said this one guy just kept coming behind him, and he was like tailgating him almost, as they were walking on the jet ramp to get on the plane. And I mean, he got so close that he turned around, and the guy looked at him and said, "Bear attack." And he said, "What?" Anyway, he ends up following this guy after he gets off the plane. He told the guy then, he said, I've never seen anybody as dumb as you,
Yeah.
And they got on the plane, and as he was getting off, he said, I felt bad about that. So he follows the guy all the way to to get your luggage and everything to the rack there. And he said he couldn't get his attention. He was behind him. And of course he said, "You guys have these pointer things." He said, "I don't have those." So he said, "I headbutted him." So he used his head to hit him from behind, hit his back. And the guy turns around, of course, startled, and he said, and then he thought, "Oh no!" He said, "I saw his hand balling up. I thought, and I can't block it." So anyway, he just goes on and he has a gospel conversation with the guy, and the thought was, if not for that situation, maybe the guy doesn't hear the gospel. So you never know how God's going to use you. But anyway, it was a great day, a great night, a great start for the Hope for Northern Kentucky evangelism event that's coming in November.
Yeah, and there'll be a series of events, and we'll tell you all about those as they approach on Kentucky Today, of course. Another example of cooperation, Chip, is church planting and replanting. And you did a story on Ashland Avenue, which has kind of made it its mission to replant, or as they call it, adopt churches.
Yes, it's a very interesting. They call it Church to Plant model. David Prince is the lead pastor at Ashland Avenue Baptist Church in Lexington, a historic church, and they have adopted the idea we want to. They don't use the term replant. They use the term adopt, and as you relate that to a child, if you adopt a child, you take that child in, you love, you care for that, but you want that child to grow up, to flourish, and to be a capable contributor to society as an adult. Same principle applies to the church. They go in and a church contacts them and says, "We're struggling. We don't know if we're going to be able to keep the doors open. Things are just not working well." So they adopt a church. They've adopted one in Richmond, one in Oldham County, and one in Danville. And I really like what David Prince says. He said, "We can only grow so much here at our Lexington campus." And on Easter, they had like 1,200 people there. But you can only grow so much. He said, "We're going to have the most and the greatest gospel impact. We want to see other churches flourish." And so they adopt a church. They go in, provide a lead pastor who is engulfed in the Ashland Avenue church culture. And these churches are all flourishing. They get that much needed help, and they don't do it by piecemeal basis. They don't just try to do minor fixes. They just have a complete overhaul, and it has been so successful. And the very interesting thing to me is the impact it's had on the home church, on the planting church, on that church in Lexington. People are just all in, and they celebrate. It is helping that church to grow, its ministry to grow, as they have reached out to other communities to help struggling churches. And so I'm hopeful this will be a model that other people can follow. David Prince is open. He'll be able to, would gladly discuss this model with anybody who has any interest in it.
And as you said, it's a model that we hope other churches across the state will adopt of some way to help a struggling church that you know about, help them come alive again. That's a really good program they're doing, and an example for others to follow. Another example of cooperation, and I love these guys and gals, women and men together, Baptist Bikers, and they came to the aid, Mark, of Sunrise Children's Services.
Yes, last Saturday they had a rally. They called it Rally to the Ranch, and the ranch is some land in Winchester that is where two houses are being built, where foster siblings can stay together, and they're about 6-8 weeks from completion, and they'll get some kids in there, and that came about through a donation from a lady named Judy Singleton, and she donated all the land. That's 132 acres of land, and for them to be able to do that. She didn't have any children. She was a school teacher, but she wanted to do something with that land and something positive, and she certainly did. And the Baptist Bikers, Randy McFerrin kind of leads that, and Randy, of course, is former KBC president and he's pastor at Bethel Baptist. And Randy's he's a longtime motorcycle rider. And anyway, it's a good group of men, and he said they had about 30 bikes, but he said here's the interesting thing: it wasn't just bikes. There were classic cars, there were trucks, he said there was even church vans with little old ladies in them, and they're looking out at these big old bikers and their chains and everything that they're wearing. And he said it was quite a scene, heading down the road. And they took a 2-hour ride, 120 miles. It was probably, I don't know how long it took them, but it was 120 miles. And they stopped at several places and had devotions at different places, had lunch at Ephesus Church there. And it was just a great day for them. It was last Saturday when that took place. But they brought in a pretty sizable donation of $9,258. Now, that's a lot of money. And we had one guy who came from Western Kentucky, 5 hours one way. He came and he came to deliver a donation and bring the donation, and then ate lunch and then headed back. So he was 10 hours on a bike. He is the youth pastor at First Baptist Church Clinton. But the interesting thing about Chris Davis is he is a former Hells Angel. And he was radically changed, when Jesus came into his life. And he has been on fire for the Lord ever since. And he's a good friend of Randy's. And that was very moving. I think, to think you would ride 10 hours to bring a donation to be part of this event.
We are fast running out of time, guys. Only 2 or 3 minutes left. But Chip, I know you wanted to talk about some of the background to an article that Dan Summerlin wrote for Kentucky Today. He's a retired pastor of Lone Oak Baptist Church, retired from that church, but not retired. He's still very active. But he wrote an article on griefing, which you had some insight into.
Yes, dealing with Dan, of course, at Lone Oak in the Paducah area. There was a tragedy there that affected a lot of people, a lot of young people. And Dan posted about grief, and it's an excellent article. And he mentions in that article grief over the loss of a loved one. It could be grief of losing a job, of losing a pet, and it's a very insightful article about dealing with grief. And in that article, he talks about you cannot just shut it off. You've got to deal with it. You've got to go through the pain. And his article tells you that the only way you can do that, you've got to go through it. You've got to heal as a result of it. The situation, we all go through those. We live in communities where you have a very tragic situation. I can think of my hometown in Princeton, some of those great tragedies, and people still grieving today, but you have to deal with it, work your way through it, and then be healed. The hurt doesn't go away, but you can have an element of healing through your grief. So I would encourage anyone to look at that article on Kentucky Today, perhaps print it out and save it, because there'll be a time that you'll need it.
Yeah, that was a great article and great contribution by him. We are out of time, but I do want to quickly get a story that has kind of rocked the sports world here in the last couple of days. Pete Rose being reinstated by Major League Baseball. Mark, you wrote about that today. Give me your thoughts. You're a Reds fan, followed Pete Rose for many years. What do you think?
Yeah, I had his poster in my room. You know, is all that. I was a big Pete Rose fan through the years there. You know, it's just a sad story, Lawrence. To be honest, I mean, he let gambling control his life. Is what it really comes down to. And you know, when people are addicts, they don't, you know, you don't plan on being an alcohol addict. You know, nobody's, oh, yeah, I'm going to go be an alcohol addict. You become that. And, you know, the same thing can happen with gambling. And obviously Pete Rose bet on baseball, and, you know, he was banned for life. And I guess after life, the ban's over because, you know, you can't, you're dead. And that's basically what the new rule was, that after somebody has been banned for life, when they die, then they can be eligible again, you know, for it. I don't think Pete Rose will ever get in the Hall of Fame. He has to go through a committee that has veterans on it, that have some writers on it. I would be really surprised if they ever vote him in on that. And that committee only meets every 3 years. And you know how many times, if he doesn't make it this time, which is 2027, December 2027 is the next time. Then the next time, you know, is 2030. You know, I mean, when does it come a point where he's kind of out? You know, and I think he's probably already there. A lot of people have said, if I'm his family, I'd have said, you know, forget it, baseball, we don't want it. But it's actually his family who prompted that they do this. They can he get reinstated? He's dead now. So it's a shame. You know, he doesn't get his flowers now, and I don't think he'll get them at all.
Now, Chip, real quick, we had a conversation earlier, and you said it wasn't not quite right because Shoeless Joe Jackson was also reinstated, famous Black Sox player, and they, you know, I guess with the 1920s or 30s?
1919.
Okay.
Yeah,
but anyway,
19.
You said it wasn't really right that Shoeless Joe Jackson and that Black Sox team was equated to Pete Rose, so they're different situations.
Yeah, I agree. That team was accused and they threw the World Series, and quite different aspect than Pete Rose, who did not. He admitted to gambling, but he did not bet against his team. You know, it just reeks of hypocrisy to me. I think Pete Rose. Pete Rose gambled, yes, but for the baseball to say, well, we're trying to protect the integrity of the game when they're in bed with the gambling organizations, and the fact that Phil Mickelson here a few years ago, it came out about how much he gambled on different sports. It's really unfair to the legacy of Pete Rose. He was treated much more harshly, I think, than others have been. And now with the betting, the gambling industry promoted on every sportscast that you see on TV, betting lines published in the news, in every daily newspaper, baseball is being very hypocritical. They're not protecting the integrity of the game by lifting this ban on him where he can be enshrined in the Hall of Fame. I agree with Mark. It's probably not going to happen. It's a shame. I hate it for his family. I think he was held to a much higher standard than everyone else has been.
You know, even Pete said, if I'm dying, once I'm dead, I don't want to go in the Hall of Fame. Even he has said that. He said that, you know, before he passed.
We're out of time. I think you're right about the hypocrisy part of that, Chip, but I think you and Mark would agree, hey, Pete Rose knew the rules, and he broke them. So he got punished for that, and that stains his legacy forever, and that's just the way it is. Anyway, you can see all those stories and more on KentuckyToday.com. For the latest, go there and read what we're writing about sports, politics, theology, all kinds of good stuff you can see on KentuckyToday.com. And for more on the Kentucky Baptist Convention, go to kybaptist.org. Norton Newling, we'll see you next time on the Kentucky Today podcast.